Well, 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 would you look at the time? Hello everybody, I'm Garrula64 and welcome back to the Story Rewrite series. I know a decent amount of you guys really like the Sonic Forces rewrite story, so I decided to go back and give it a little sequel in the form of an actual hypothetical sequel to Sonic Forces. Actual hypothetical, that's an oxymoron, ignore me please. That being said, if you haven't seen the first part where I explained the gameplay of this hypothetical game, make sure to click the card right there to check that out, but without further ado, we're going to launch into the second part of this three-part series. Much like the intro to this video, the game starts out with a quick flashback of some of the events of Sonic Forces, ending with the custom character zipping away into the sunset. A level intro card swipes in and you're thrust into what boils down to a tutorial level. The surroundings are very reminiscent of the Sonic Forces city levels, but the city slowly falls away into the distance as the custom hero makes their way out of it and onto a beach where the level ends and the first cutscene plays. The custom hero steps onto the sand and looks out at the water. The screen fades to white as they relive a memory from their past. As they walk down the beach, they notice a commotion further ahead. A group of bandits is positioned in a circle around someone or something. The custom hero can't really tell from where they are. One of the thugs turns around and sees the custom hero, who we'll just call Hero from now on because that'll be a lot easier, and they shout something to the others. A few of them walk towards Hero and grab them. Hero is then thrown into the middle where they bump into another figure and they fall on the ground.
So, Nil, you thought you'd get the jump on us by calling in backup, huh? That's so unlike you. But I guess we can teach yous both a lesson.
Hero looks up just in time to see an outstretched hand go out in front of them. I've never seen this person before. They have nothing to do with this. I'm willing to settle my debt with you, but let them go first. The largest of their assailants steps forward, smiling and shaking his head. Do you really think we'd fall for that? Usually it's either brain or brawn, but we just so happen to have both. The leader and his lackeys converge on the two as Hero fades back into the present and shakes off their residual anxiety. The scene fades to black. The game fades back into the first hub world where other avatars stand beneath umbrellas and near broken beachside houses. You're able to talk to whoever you want and explore before you head off towards the area where the levels are located. After completing the first stage, where you'd be forced to collect at least one prototype shard, a cinematic of Hero walking back onto the beach with the shard would play. They'd recollect something about their time with the Resistance using their prototype Ruby accidentally and then having it destroyed at the tail end of Forces. From their bag, they'd remove one or two more shards that they picked up after the original broke, and then they would dump them all back into the bag and walk off as the scene fades out. After finishing 3 of World 1's levels, Hero was once again thrust into a flashback. The goons that had previously surrounded them lay strewn about along the ground as the figure that had stood up for them before uppercuts the last one, and then falls to one knee, breathing heavily. Hero lifts their hands from their head and straightens out of their cowering position just in time to see him collapse onto the sand. Hero gets up, looking at all the defeated thugs, and grabs what looks to be a jackal's hand and drags him away from the carnage. The scene transitions to behind one of the beachside houses seen earlier in the hub as the jackal stirs. Angry voices can be heard from the other side, and Hero anxiously motions for him to be quiet as he opens his eyes. As the voices subside, the jackal breathes a sigh of relief. He stands up and brushes himself off. Hero stands up as well, still looking really nervous, peering around the other side of the villa. Hey, I'm sorry you got caught up in all that. When those guys get an idea in their heads, it's hard to get them to see things any other way. Don't for a second believe that brains and brawn line. Hero turns back and cautiously looks over the jackal before looking back around the house. Look, I know that wasn't a pleasant experience you just went through, but they'll move on now. They always do. So trust me, you can take it easy. He walks around the other side of the house and casually drops and staying back here for your entire life really isn't an option. Hero turns around and their eyes widen as they see the jackal walking out into the open. They rush to catch up with them as the memory fades away. Hero then returns to the beach hub and a random NPC will approach and ask them if they found anything they could use to help fix up the place. Hero shows them the prototype shards and the NPC looks disappointed, but quickly becomes intrigued when the shards glow a small bit. They explain that they were hired to help fix this place up after all the chaos from the previous months, but they also dabble in Wispas, motioning to the device at Hero's waist. They tell Hero to come find them if they collect any more of those shards, because they might be able to hook them up with some upgrades. You're then left in the hub where a camera movement will show the same NPC from the cutscene in an area with a set of tools and some other materials. They'd wave and then the camera would pan back to Hero. From here you can either go see what the new shop has to offer you, which at the moment would be 1 new Wispawn slot for 5 shards and 100 rings, first one is cheap, or some smaller ability upgrades for just rings. There are new Wispawn powers available for purchase here too, but unless you've replayed the first 3 levels a handful of times before this point, you probably won't have enough rings to unlock any of them just yet. But this does mean that you're able to grab them in any order you choose as long as you have enough rings. This is also the point where a random NPC in the hub world would get your attention and ask you to perform a task for them, and in return, you get these shiny things that they found. The missions you partake in for these characters can sometimes yield very generous rewards depending on the difficulty presented. I did touch on these side missions a little bit in the previous part, but I did want to highlight one comment I got because I thought it was pretty cool. I proposed that one of these missions you could get include escort missions, and the YouTube user GE7 had this idea to make the escorts a little bit more interesting. They said that the type of avatar could actually alter how the mission plays. So for instance, if the NPC you're supposed to be escorting is like impatient, they might run forward and try to attack enemies and get themselves hurt, which would make you fail the mission, or maybe they would put you on a time limit because they need to get out of there in a certain amount of time. Stuff like that. It just seemed kind of interesting, so I wanted to mention it. So thank you for the suggestions. Since there would only be a limited amount of shards in each level, I think it's only fair that you'd be able to gather a decent amount from the missions, so you wouldn't need to like grind extra missions for hours to get what you want. Trust me, the last thing I enjoy is tedious side missions, so let's not have them be that. After the 5th level's all finished up, Hero walks back onto the beach just in time to see a familiar masked figure floating through the sky weakly towards the beach hub. Of course, they give chase. Back in town, our old friend Infinite is yelling at the townsfolk, demanding that they hand over any of the prototype shards that they have. The townsfolk aren't really sure how to react since he seems sort of weak, giving the impression that he could keel over at any moment, but they turn tail and run for shelter when he raises a few shards into the air, and that familiar noise is heard. The surrounding area glows red for a moment and then returns to normal. A massive crash is heard in the distance. Hero runs up to Infinite just as the shards he was using disintegrate in his hand. He clenches his fist and the fine red powder seeps through his fingers and into the wind. He looks up and sighs in annoyance when he sees Hero approaching. And as per the norm, danger calls and the forces of good answer. I should have realized that my search for the shards would cause our paths to cross once again. I just didn't think it would be this soon. Hero reaches into their bag for something and removes one of the shards, holding it out to him. Infinite swats it away without hesitation. When his arm returns to its resting position, Hero notices that the ruby that was previously implanted in Infinite's chest is no longer there, and in its place, a barely healed wound. I accept charity from no one. Least of all you. You and that darn doctor took everything from me. My pride, my power. And now I'm forced to scavenge the earth for the remaining pieces of those wretched inferior models we destroyed. And for what? Not even a fraction of my former abilities? I suppose it's inconsequential. Once I collect enough, neither you or that blue rat will be able to stand in my way. Hero grimaces and waves their hand at the environment before looking back at Infinite. Infinite looks around for a moment before staring daggers back at Hero. You'd like to know if I remember this place. You poor child. Do you really take me for the sentimental type? I have no memory of this place, but I feel that I will remember it from this day on. I'll remember it as the place where I finally watched you fall. With that, the crashing noise from before rings out again as the giant crab badnik from Guardian Rock explodes through a nearby cliff and onto the beach. It looks around and sets its sights on Infinite and Hero as it stomps in their direction. Hero turns to Infinite and shakes their head knowingly. Tricks? Oh, you naive fool. I've moved past the mere party tricks from before. With the last remaining energy in these shards, I called that monstrosity here. That's no mere illusion. With enough of these shards, I can surpass what that ruby was capable of. You see, the prototypes were inferior, but not in a sense of potential. On the contrary, the prototypes were far too powerful. So powerful, in fact, that the doctor deemed them too dangerous for use. Each robotic servant that attempted to control these prototypes were destroyed because not only could they cast the illusions that the finished model could, they were also able to create matter from nothing. This, of course, meant that anything that was created could affect the user as well. So from what you know of the doctor's big scheme, he couldn't risk that. Fast forward to when I awoke. The doctor had finally managed to put a cap on the power of the original ruby, therefore creating the first ever safe and functional model. Although, in the end, he decided to go ahead and use the original that he stumbled upon all those months ago, and it clearly backfired. Because as you can see, it too shattered under the pressure. It's amazing to see what only a small amount of these shards can do as opposed to the original. And I can almost taste the sweet vengeance that will come about when I have enough of these shards within my grasp. He stops his monologue for a moment and gives Hero another look. It seems that we are indeed two sides of the same coin. Always at odds, yet so close. Who will find the shards first? Only time will tell. But if you'll excuse me, it looks like you have bigger problems to worry about. Infinite holds up another shard and vanishes as the crab stomps a foot into the ground right behind Hero. Hero whips around and grabs their Wispawn. When we come to a boss fight like this, I'll give a quick rundown of what to expect because I really want to get back to the main story bits. Basically, you're going to want to strike all 4 of the legs of the machine until they lose their health, thus allowing Hero to tether to the top of it and attack the main part. The robot will obviously be attacking you throughout the main phase and will also attempt to throw you off when you're on its head. To remain on top of it, you must tether to points on the crab as it tries to shake you off and hold on until it stops. If the crab regains its health in its legs before you beat it, you have to repeat this phase, but it is possible to take it out in one cycle if you're quick enough. The crab explodes and pieces of it rain down across the beach, tarnishing what was possibly the only place left in the area untouched by Eggman's forces. The townsfolk emerge from their hiding places and cheer for Hero. Some even run out to come and shake their hand. Hero smiles nervously, but their nerves are pushed aside as they bask in the air of a job well done. As Hero prepares to leave the hub, they look back to where they had their conversation with Infinite just hours before and are launched into another memory. The Jackal emerges from behind the house from before, with Hero following close behind. He turns and walks backwards into the clearing. See what I tell ya? They got really short attention span. He trips backwards over something buried partially in the sand. Hero rushes forwards to see if he's alright, and he's already laughing it off. He pulls the unidentified object from the sand, and it's a little communicator. Not my finest moment. The Jackal looks around and notices several other communicators littered around the beach, some looking more beat up than others. I guess we can add littering to their list of crimes. He looks at Hero, who manages a small smile and chuckles a bit. The Jackal walks over to one that seems functional and attaches it to his belt. He drops the rest of the devices in a nearby waste receptacle before heading back to Hero's side. You know, I didn't get to say thank you yet for helping me out back there. If you hadn't done that, I shudder to think what those guys would have done to me if they'd woken up first. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to have someone else around. He holds out the first communicator to Hero, and since there's no visual to show you this, I'll just tell you that it would be identically shot to the scene from earlier where Hero offered Infinite the shard, except their places are reversed. Hero reaches out gingerly to take the offered communicator. My name is Nil. What's your name? And that's where that flashback ends. Quick couple things I wanted to mention. Nil is a synonym for Zero, which was apparently Infinite's original name in the early drafts of Sonic Forces, though I think that name is pretty overused, so I decided to go a slightly different route. Also, the communicator, if you remember that scene from the rewrite where Infinite destroys it, knowing exactly where it came from now will make it hurt a lot more, so sorry about that. Next up, Hero loads into a hub world in a mountainous valley. Mountains tower on all sides of the place, so you can expect some platforming across misty mountaintops and some treacherous heights. There's no cutscene upon first entering the hub, so you have a little bit in between all these scenes. Remember, this is a game, not a movie. Here you'll notice there's an area where some NPCs are gathering, but the crowd is so dense that you can't exactly see what's going on yet. You can find this hub's upgrade shop and use that if you like, but otherwise your main goal is the levels. You're also introduced to a board in the hub world that will appear in the beach hub at this point that lists all of the side missions currently available and will warp you to the NPC that has the mission in case you can't find them. You can also see other hubs missions here, and you'll be teleported to that place upon confirming. After clearing 2 levels here, Hero comes across a mountain with a chunk blown out of the side. They stare at it as they fade into another memory. The memory begins on the same mountain, but not damaged like it is in the present. Nil and Hero are walking through the valley. Nil is clutching a map and looking up every so often as if he's looking for something specific. Hero looks to the side and their eyes light up. They tap Nil on the shoulder and he looks back at them and then in the direction they're pointing. There's a small alcove partially hidden behind some bushes. The two run over to it and Nil brushes the foliage aside, revealing a tunnel. I believe I won the bet. Looks like that shady cartographer was telling the truth. And you thought I was wasting my money. Nil smirks. Hero rolls their eyes and gives Nil an after you gesture, motioning to the tunnel. Nil takes them up on that and ducks down as he walks into the enclosed space. Hero follows behind, taking out their communicator and holding it tightly with both hands as they hesitantly follow. Back in the present, Hero enters the tunnel once again, this time with no hesitation. The next level takes place inside the cavern within this tunnel. Hero must grapple using falling stalactites to avoid being swept away by the rough rivers that are found throughout the area. When Hero emerges on the other side of the cavern, a large temple can be seen. There's a massive hole in the front of it, which definitely doesn't look like a design decision. As Hero is looking at the surrounding area, they see a flash of red from within the temple and hear the Phantom Ruby's trademark noise, albeit very faint. Hero rushes up the steps, and as they cross the threshold into the temple, a wave of red cubes repels them from the building, blocking entry and knocking them out as they land with a thud. While they're knocked out, they dream of a distant memory. They see their friend and themselves emerging from the cave, covered in dirt and scratches. Oh, that was a little rougher than I was expecting. No one ever mentioned those rivers. They're inconvenient as they are, but they were easily double as dangerous since, as we learned, you can't swim. Hero winces at that and scratches the back of their head. Not that that was a problem. You're my friend. Friends help friends, right? Hiro still looks a little upset, but nods and manages a smile. Now, I'm willing to bet that this temple's the one we're looking for, since I don't see any other ancient temples around. Do you? Nil looks at Hiro out of the corner of his eye. He notices them shake their head, answering him as if they didn't realize it was a joke. The two then head up the stairs into the temple, but through a door, not a massive hole. When Hiro finally wakes up, they stand and throw a rock at the entrance. The same barrier sends the rock flying, so they set off to find another way in. The next two levels take place inside the temple. Quick gameplay note, if you return to the hub world at any point after completing the first level in this world, you'll be greeted with a short cinematic of the hub's upgrade shop NPC explaining that some residents can be enlisted to go into the field and help collect supplies for rebuilding. This gives you access to the avatar creation screen again, so you can swap out your main hero in levels and bosses that you've already completed. But anyway, once those two levels are completed, the jackal is backle. Hiro enters into a large chamber with statues that reach from the floor to the ceiling, and that's pretty large. One seems to be missing as there's one in each corner of the room aside from the corner in the far left. Infinite floats beside an altar where several prototype shards are lying. He turns around when he hears Hiro enter. I was foolish to think it was anyone other than you trying to enter this place. And truthfully, I'm starting to believe there's more to our continued meetings than just dumb luck. We may both be searching for shards, but why search in a place as desolate as this? Frowning, Hiro points at Infinite. What? What made me come here? The shards, nothing else. I sensed a great deal of them. Why do you continue to assault my ears with these idiotic questions? Infinite turns away from Hiro mid-sentence and trails off when he sees the spot where the supposed fourth statue once sat. From his point of view, we see the world flicker red as the statue appears and vanishes before his eyes. There's no Phantom Ruby noise to be heard though, as the scene fades to red with Infinite clutching his head in pain. This flashback is overlaid with a thick red tint unlike Hiro's flashbacks. The audio is hardly audible here and faces are obscured partially. Nil and Hiro enter the chamber, and some time passes as they look around the room. Nil approaches the altar where Infinite was standing and lifts a jewel from it, pointing at it with his other hand and shouting something to his friend. Hiro looks elated they found what they were looking for, but they also see the two statues behind their friend change slightly. Their eyes glow and the whole room begins to shake. The statue on the far left shifts from its position and Hiro runs up the steps to Nil's side, spinning him around and pointing at the massive contraption. Nil faces Hiro and gives a shrug, clearly trying to play it cool, but then points to the direction of the door. The two run down the steps, Nil still clutching the jewel, with the statue in hot pursuit. The scene's red tint fades to normal as the two running figures vanish, replaced by just Hiro standing across the room from him. The camera takes up a normal angle of him as he removes his hands from his head slowly and reaches for a handful of shards. Hiro looks concerned as they proceed up the stairs. Infinite shoves a shard in between them and it begins to glow. Around half the pile rises off the altar as he does this. I don't know what you want from me, but I'm not gonna let you or anybody get in my way this time. Hiro nods at him. You're trying to help me? What kind of nonsensical creature are you? Hiro holds out their hand. Infinite stares at it, flabbergasted. Friends help friends? He lowers the shard he'd been holding moments before, but suddenly it and the other glowing shards on the altar crumble to dust and the room begins to shake. A large arm appears out of nowhere and swats Infinite across the room, sending him smashing into the wall. He hits the ground hard, but it's not like he noticed because he's pretty unconscious at this point. Hiro looks in the direction the hand came from, and the statue from the far right corner of the room is looming over them. Hiro leaps off the staircase right as the statue slams its hand down right where they were standing moments before. Hiro flies clumsily through the air, almost having been hit by the statue, and lands next to Infinite. Hiro hoists Infinite onto their shoulder and runs toward the exit. Now this boss isn't a boss fight at first. Hiro's first priority is to get Infinite out of the temple and away from the statue, and since they're carrying the unconscious jackal, they're not able to use their Wispon for this portion. Everything else is the same in terms of movement in this section, you just need to rely on your wire attack more. Once the two make it outside, Hiro lays Infinite down inside the cave and returns to the front of the temple where the boss fight plays out. This boss fight requires Hiro to use their wire attack on the arms of the statue as it tries to flatten them, and then attack the statue's head. The statue will wisen up after the first attack though and try to swat Hiro as they climb, so it only gets harder as the damage is done. Before the final hit is made, the statue grabs Hiro's tethering cable and throws them off so hard that they land on top of the mountain from before. Now in a cutscene, using the wire attack once again, Hiro ties up the statue's legs, causing it to fall face first into the mountain, destroying the side that wasn't previously damaged, and thus comically causing the remaining piece of the top of the mountain to fall directly into place, making it seem as if the mountain was never damaged in the first place. The statue tumbles down the mountain and crashes into the valley below, leaving a sizable dent in the ground. Hiro then returns to the cave to find Infinite, who is no longer there, but they do find some broken pieces of what seems to be his mask laying where Hiro left him. Hiro looks back at the entrance of the cave and slips into another memory. Nil and Hiro emerge from the small tunnel they found hours before, and Nil breathes a sigh of relief. There's no way that statue could fit through that cave. I'd say we're in the clear. Hiro begins to give a thumbs up, but they're both knocked off their feet as rubble falls from above. The two look up and see the statue tearing chunks out of the mountain and tossing them at the pair. The statue lets go of the mountain and jumps down, causing a massive earth tremor, knocking Nil, who had just almost gotten back onto his feet, back to the floor. Nil tosses the jewel to Hiro and dashes past the statue towards a nearby ledge. He throws rocks at it, and its focus goes from Hiro and the gem to him. The statue charges him and he leaps out of the way, sending the statue careening over the precipice. The two hear a very audible thunk as the statue slams into the valley below. Alright, now we're in the clear. Nil just manages to choke out that last word before the ground beneath him begins to give way, and he too plummets into the chasm. Hiro hears him yell, and then it preemptively cuts out. Hiro rushes to the cliffside and looks over, and sees Nil hanging onto a ledge within grabbing distance from the top. He looks up at them as they offer their hand, and he takes it. You know, I'm starting to think maybe I should stop saying that. The game then transitions to the next hub area, the Carnival town. An NPC would then run up to Hiro and tell them that everyone is meeting at the town center, and a quick cutscene talking about venturing out with a friend or two being safer than venturing out alone would play. After this scene ends, you're able to take multiple characters into levels with you, as elaborated on in the previous part. These other characters won't show up in cutscenes, they're really just a gameplay addition. Upon entering the level portion of the hub, Hiro gets ambushed by Infinite. While they're not paying attention, Infinite rushes in from the side and knocks them off their feet. I bet you thought you'd get the jump on me again, but I've had it with your meddling. We now have a sudden Infinite mini-boss where he uses prototype shards to attack you with red block snakes and other familiar attacks from forces. After that ends, you're able to get a better look at Infinite during the cutscene. One side of his mask has severe damage done to it from being slammed against the wall back at the temple. Hiro notices part of Nil's face can finally be seen, but the eye that stares back at them holds only anger. Infinite howls in frustration and covers the hole in his mask with his hand. He rushes down an alleyway and into a crowd and disappears. Now that that's out of the way, I get to tell you that this is pretty much my favorite hub world that I came up for this hypothetical game, because it's pretty much a combination of Twinkle Park and Carnival Night and Rooftop Run from Sonic Unleashed. So like, just the entire town is just decked out in fun set pieces and rides serving as everyday things. For example, all the buses are replaced with swinging pirate ships, and regular cars are bumper cars. And in a lot of cases, Hiro has to grapple on Ferris wheels and roller coasters to get around. Upon clearing stage 5, Infinite would once again appear before Hiro. He seems much calmer though. Thanks to the prototype shards, I took a quick trip back to the place where I first woke up. The doctor wasn't there, if you're curious. What was there, though, was this. He unsheaths a red blade from his waist and examines it closely with his exposed eye. This magnificent blade. It fits my hand perfectly, almost as if it was made for me. He slices it through the air and points it at Hiro. I suppose this is the part where you tell me it was made for me. Hiro looks like they want to say something, but they don't. If there's anything left from before I woke up, I'll fight it till my last breath if it means seeing you suffer. Infinite then charges at Hiro, sword drawn, triggering the boss fight. In this fight, much like you do with your Wispawn, Infinite uses his shards to make his blade more powerful. He makes it glow brighter and send shockwaves when he swings it. He elongates the blade and tries to swipe at you from afar, and sometimes he strikes the ground, causing chunks of the floor to rise. He then slices through them with the blade, which causes them to burst into flames, explode, and rush towards you. The blade does sometimes get stuck in the ground though, and that's when you have your chance to attack. You are also able to attack him if you're quick enough to reach him before he attacks you, but that's a little bit easier said than done. Infinite is knocked backwards and the blade rattles to the floor beside him. He stares at it with his exposed eye, and the world becomes a deep red once again. Infinite sees the two figures from before, but things are slightly clearer. He can make out what their voices are saying, but they sound as if they're underwater or he has cotton stuffed in his ears. He gets brief glimpses of Hiro's face this time, but the other figure remains somewhat ambiguous. The ambiguous figure, or Nil, because we all know who it is, let's not kid ourselves, is casually tossing the jewel from before into the air with one of his hands, while the other is providing a shield for his eyes from the harsh neon lights. The guy I'm looking for should be around here somewhere. This place is so huge, we might not even be on the right street. Hiro watches as the jewel flips through the air and lands back in Nil's hand. He notices this and turns to them. Relax, I'm not gonna drop it. We almost died to get this thing, so of course I'm being careful. Nil misses the jewel on its way back down, and Hiro dives to catch it before it hits the ground. That was a fluke. I have excellent hand-eye coordination. They stand back up and shake their head at Nil. Nil squints his eyes at something behind Hiro and leans to see past them. His eyes brighten up and he pats Hiro on the shoulder excitedly. Hey, there it is! I've only been here once before to drop off a few things, but I'm glad my memory hasn't failed me just yet. He motions for Hiro to follow him, and they head off towards something in the distance. We then see Nil handing something over to a shopkeeper, and some time passes as Hiro and Nil talk. but none of the conversation can be heard. The shopkeeper returns with a blade in a sheath. Nil removes it and slowly marvels at its shine. The blade is red, just like the jewel. Also, since I know some people are gonna ask, no, the jewel was not a Chaos Emerald. Oh man, look at this thing! It was so worth risking my life at the temple for this. Hiro looks it over and gives Nil a curious look. It's not for anything specific, don't worry. I just thought it'd be nice to have something for those extreme cases of self-defense, you know? Infinite is then snapped back into the present by Hiro kneeling next to him, waving a hand in his face. He swats it away as he seems to enjoy doing and reclaims his blade. Self-defense. Don't make me laugh. He turns back to Hiro. You helped me back at the temple instead of leaving me to die. I don't ever recall asking for your help. Hiro lowers their head, and before they know it, Infinite has the sword drawn and is right in front of them. So my suspicions were correct. I've been seeing things. Memories. Back at the temple, and just now. These places I'm traveling to seem to trigger them. Or maybe it's you. The sword inches closer to Hiro before he sheaths it. Don't think too far into this. This changes nothing. But me not ending you here makes us even. Next time we meet, and I'm positive there will be a next time, I won't hesitate. He dashes off into the night, and Hiro is left on the ground with flashing neon lights illuminating the area. And that's gonna do it for part 2. Again, I didn't want to make this too long, so in part 3 we will have the conclusion of this what-if story, and I cannot wait for you to see it. Even though we've gone over some of my favorite parts of the story so far, the ending is also one of those parts. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Probably coming sometime next week. I just need a little bit more time to get it ready, sorry. But anyway, that's gonna be all for today, so if you like this video and you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell, follow my Twitter, and join the Discord to keep up with more original stories and story rewrites and other things that aren't those things, because I do a lot of things. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to my current supporters, who are Jeremy, Silva PhD, Knuckles Channel 3 and Knuckles, Atlas Requiem, Supersonic 99 of CCI Games, Nick 46, Jaded Indolent, Cosmic Mushroom, Lucas Tallman, Nico the Person, Mitron, Kenneth Gutierrez, Henry S, Rob Morrison, Mega Trafficone, Creative, and Mike TGC. Thank you guys so much for supporting, it really means a lot, and if you have any interest in becoming a supporter yourself, go ahead and click that join button beneath the video, or check out my Patreon page, where you can check out the perks, such as getting shoutouts at the end of every single video and stream. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.